Hey guys, welcome back to In the Beat, and today I'm showing you one of the MVPs, the most valuable plugins, of course, that have the most wide-ranging use for making things sound better in a music production context and beyond. Have you ever tried to EQ the muddy or harsh qualities out of something only to find that you just basically like sucked all the life out of it and it just sounds really weird and unnatural? All sounds have a different balance of harmonics, which is what differentiates a piano from a flute from a guitar. And for a lot of different reasons, these harmonics can stack up and make these really harsh sounding resonances. And that would actually be pretty easy to fix if instruments just sat there and played like the same note at the same intensity. And then, we'd take an EQ and find the resonance and then just notch it out to a degree, right? But of course, that's not reality. Performances and recordings are dynamic by nature. Their frequency, balance, and intensity change over time. So watch what happens when I keep that notch and then play a different note. So now the resonances move around. If you just widen the Q, then you remove a big group of frequencies that could be important, like in the clarity of an instrument, for example. And unfortunately, while the Q is so wide, you can't really get away with dipping it as far without it starting to sound unnatural. All right. So what's the solution? The solution is to use dynamic EQ instead, which only actually dips the frequencies that you're interested in when they occur, which makes so much sense. I'm gonna go ahead and pull open my favorite plugin for this, but I'm also going to give you a cheap option as well as a free option after I show you what a beast this plugin is. If you guys tuned in and watched my Produce Like Kanye video,
I miss the old Kanye, straight from the gold Kanye, chop up the soul Kanye.
I pitched up this Marvin Gaye sample by about 4 semitones. So as I play this little sample chop, I want you to just listen out for the harsh resonances somewhere around like the 3K range. Did you hear that? So what we could do is just notch it out like I was saying, so brace yourself. So instead of notching it out like that and making it sound kind of weird for the rest of the sample, enter Soothe. So let's not worry about what every single one of these knobs does, but this spectrum, this graph is basically just asking us what band of frequencies we're interested in controlling. But I know from my notch that it's gonna be about 3K. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come over to Soothe, I'm gonna raise 3K, and we're gonna be extreme about this. And it's easier to think about this graph not so much as EQ, but as more of a depth control. So if I'm raising this band here, it's saying, I want you to soothe this band a lot. Rather than dip the band out like we would do with EQ. Okay, so let's give this a listen. And let's even focus it even more. I'm gonna raise this high pass filter and lower the low pass filter here. Now, even though I'm being pretty extreme here, can you tell how much better that sounds? How much it's controlling that resonance? I also just kind of want to draw your attention to this little button down here that says delta. And when I activate that, what's going to happen is it's going to play only the frequencies that it is controlling for us, which is super useful to listen to. So check this out. Only those resonances. It's not the most pleasant thing to listen to, but it is super useful. This thing is amazing on any kind of vocals, obviously not just these, sampled vocals here. And you can adjust how sharp the peaks are of the resonances. You can adjust how selective Soothe is with these resonances, so you can kind of see visually what it's doing here. Let me put this at maximum. See how much thinner those are? It does come with some consequences of doing that, but it gives you a lot of control about how, you are making this sound better. So let's try to correct the same thing that we heard, but in a different way with our cheap plugin option, which I promised you, which is Waves C1SC. And actually, you might even have this plugin that came from a Waves bundle and you didn't even know it, or you're not utilizing it as often as I think you should. So let's pull open the C1SC. So the first thing we're gonna do is change the EQ mode from wideband to split. So you have to click it twice to change the mode. And that basically tells it to only apply the gain reduction to a certain band of frequencies. You'll notice that these controls are a lot like what we get with a compressor, and you'd be right because we are basically compressing, but just a single band instead of the entire signal. So the next thing that we're going to do is change the band of frequencies that we're interested in from a low pass filter at 7K to a band pass. You just click this little filter indicator, I guess. You just click that once, and then we're going to change our frequency from 7,179 to 3K. Because remember, that's what we want. And the last thing we need to do is I like to just adjust the monitor from audio to sidechain, which is similar to the delta button in Soothe, but here we're just listening to the ones that it's controlling. So let me show you what this sounds like. Okay, that sounds correct. So now we can change the monitor from sidechain back to audio so that we can hear the full signal once again. Now, it's not actually applying any gain reduction right now because our ratio is at 1 and our threshold is all the way up, just the same as a compressor. So let's change our ratio to something like 3 and then keep our attack at 2 milliseconds, release of 50 is fine. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna play this and pull the threshold down until we start seeing some gain reduction. So here's what it sounds like before we added the C1SC. And here's after. It's sounding a little better here, huh? And of course, we can dial this in even further and get it closer to the way that we want it to sound. And if you don't have C1SC, there is a free option, and it's Tokyo Dawn Records Nova. This plugin is awesome. I listed it in my top free effects plugins video, so go check that out if you want to go find some more gold that you should probably already have in your inventory. So what I'm going to do here is move to the closest band, and I'm going to type in 3000 Hertz because that's the band that we're interested in. I'm going to activate the threshold so that it activates the dynamic EQ. I'm going to move the threshold to something similar to what it was with C1SC, which is 3 to 1. And the attack and release as well, so 2 and I think 50 we had it at, just so we get a more fair comparison. And then we'll also tighten up the EQ here. So what I'm going to do is just bring down the threshold in the same way that we did. We can see it doing a lot of work on that because there's a pretty harsh resonance. But you can see this is so much different than just taking out, 12 to 24 decibels of one frequency throughout the entire thing. It's only activating when it needs to be activating. So here's before. And after. If you guys have any questions about how any of this works, don't hesitate to leave us a comment down below. And as always, we'll see you in the next In the Beat.